just wanted to introduce Hueling Chan. Hueling, the spelling might confuse you if you think of whaling like in Moby Dick with the WH, Hueling. That's pretty close.
Yes, very close.
And Hueling and I have known each other for a long time, off and on.
Yes.
When I first came to Seattle in 1990 with my Chinese husband and my Chinese American daughter, and then shortly afterwards my mother-in-law came over from Taiwan at the age of 78, not speaking a word of English. And we found out about a social service agency in Chinatown that was very, very, very helpful to her. And Hueling has been working for them on staff for all these years for this social service agency. And the reason I wanted to invite her is that when we did our Vision 2025 report, my job was to go out into the community and talk to a lot of different people about the changing community around our church. And Bellevue, as you know, I came in 1990 when Bellevue was considered all white, and now it's majority minority,
yes.
Which Seattle is not. We have a bigger minority population than Seattle, and which I don't want to be stealing your thunder.
No,
but anyway,
keep going.
And as you all know, that's mainly because of immigrants, particularly immigrants from Asia, and particularly immigrants from China. And Hueling gave the best explanation of the Chinese community around us, and also some of the needs and concerns. So I invited her to come. So a warm welcome for Hueling.
Thank you. Good morning. It's such a pleasure to be able to be here on the Sunday morning, a beautiful, gorgeous morning, right? So as Dory said, I'm Hueling Chan. I'm a program director with Chinese Information and Service Center. I was born and raised in Taiwan, came to Seattle in 1976. And then went to University of Washington, got my MSW at university, so I'm a true Husky, okay? Go Husky. And so as a social worker, I've been working mainly with the community, such as immigrant community, and I have seen, the changes of demographic, the population changes, and also the needs. There's still a lot of the similar needs, but there's different needs. They also, come with the changing of the population. So before I start, I just want to ask, do people have any burning questions or anything you would like to know today? Yes.
I'm always full of burning questions. My main concern is understanding the culture and wanting to be outgoing and friendly and welcoming, and how to do that in a culturally appropriate way.
Okay.
And I figured some of it out with my neighbors, but
Sure.
in general.
Jan, right? Okay.
Yeah.
I make sure I will answer that one.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Anyone else have other questions? Yes.
It's not so much a question as an observation. I walk in the downtown park every day, and I am the foreigner. And,
Yes.
and so what can I say to people I have no way of knowing, or not even knowing if they can speak English, and assuming they all do?
Okay. Good.
A little
All right.
info
About that. Okay.
people
Yeah.
who are living here now.
People living here now. Okay. Any other?
Well, just what the need, you said you were gonna talk about it,
Yeah,
what the needs are.
Okay, great. Okay, so any other questions or?
We'll probably have lots after you start talking.
Okay, so I want to just make this a conversational. How's that? So
Okay.
whenever I'm talking, if you have comments, feedback, or questions or concern, please, okay? Right?
Sit down?
Huh?
You wanna sit down and have a conversation?
Well, because if I know it's such a small group, originally I probably would do a circle. Okay, but since the room already set up, that's okay. I'll stand up so you guys can all see me. Okay, how's that? Yeah, great. Okay, so maybe we should talk a little bit about Chinese Information Service Center. Just two sentences. So we are a social service agency started in 1976. It was a group of students at University of Washington saw the needs, specifically senior living in Chinatown. because of language and cultural barrier, they weren't able to access to a lot of resources. That's why these group of young men and women decided they would like to volunteer and help. That's how we started. Every Thursday afternoon, they went to a grocery store, borrow a table and 2 chairs. So in 72, so this is our 46 years, and now we're not only serving senior, we're serving from birth to 106. 106 is our oldest client right now, living by herself with the support of the case management services. So we're very proud. Every time I see her, I say, you have to keep it up, okay? So I could brag about you. I could brag about next year we're serving 107, right? And so that's how we started. And then, so to talk about the Chinese, living in King County area and specifically in Bellevue. So the first wave of Chinese came probably traced back to 1850. That's a group of Chinese men came here to help to build the railroad. Yes, that's how it started. And because of the Chinese Exclusion Act in 1882, that's a lot of the Chinese stopped coming in, right? Not until probably after the end of the Chinese Exclusion Act, but still not many Chinese coming at the time between the 1960 to about 1990. That's a lot of foreign students coming from Taiwan, Hong Kong. Not a lot from China. Probably no one in China was able to allow to come at the time. So that's the foreign student, they come for postgraduate degree. So a lot of them went to University of Washington, and they decided to stay. And most of them work in Boeing, UW, or the professional field, okay? So these are a group of the Chinese that are living in Bellevue area at the time. And then, so they are professional, they all speak English, and there's also a continued group of population immigrated to Seattle. These are the descendants of those railroad workers. So they will continue coming in as through the family reunification. So these are, most of them are coming from Canton province. If you're very familiar with China, Canton province is the southern part of China. So they all speak Cantonese or Toisanese. And most of them living in Seattle area because we're Beacon Hill, Chinatown, or south of Beacon Hill. And those usually, let me put something first. What I'm talking about today is it's a generalization. Okay, so I don't want you to say, oh, Hueling said, these group of people are lower income, these people are professional. There's always, some, their uniqueness and differences, okay? I'm just kind of give a general profiling, okay? So those people, they usually, a lot of time, they have lower income level, and they have greater needs in a lot of navigating system and all that. And oftentimes English become much a barrier for them, okay? And so around 1990, because of the Microsoft, the high tech, so we start to see a group of high tech people coming in from China. These are sponsored by Microsoft and Amazon. So again, these are the younger generation who are professional and mainly in technology field. And then it's like about in 2010, okay, then we start to see another influx of rich Chinese coming to Seattle to do investment, buying properties. Okay, so in 2017, Seattle was rated #1 city for Chinese home buyer. I mean, when I say Seattle, it's a Seattle area, okay? And of course, Bellevue, it's kind of their top choice. Why? Why do you think Bellevue would be so attractive?
Schools.
You don't need me here, you know it already. Why school? Why? I mean, we all know Bellevue has great school system. Why Chinese are so much?
Chinese, just education is the most important thing to them.
And where you have.
I heard that they were very interested in computer education, and heard that they were teaching programming to kindergartners at high school.
Yeah. So overall, if you don't know about this, there's 5 Bellevue High School was ranked top in another top 100 by Newsweek. Okay, and of course there's University of Washington, right, which is also ranked number 13 best university by Shanghai Report, because they did all this research and everything. They think University of Washington has the best major, you know, it's like computer, as you said, right? So they felt like these are the top school. But why Chinese are so emphasized on education?
Because they're bright.
It's the way to succeed.
Yeah.
It's what?
The way to succeed, to have a
The
good
way to
education.
succeed. It's the ladder to mobility, right? Because why? If you look back long time ago in Chinese history, that, you know, people were classified into 4 classes. So down the bottom would be classified the merchant. And then what do you think on the second layer?
Medicine.
It's more the blue collar.
Farmers?
Blue collar.
Mhm. And what's the third layer?
Education. Like teachers and things.
Farmer.
Farmers.
Because Chinese is just,
Oh, that was third.
so I'm going from the bottom. The bottom is the merchant, right? And then the blue collar, right? And then the third one is the farmers. Yeah, because China is so much agricultural country, right? Rely on a lot of the farming. So farmers are important. And on the top would be the scholar. So that would classify as the highest class. And that's why everybody would put all their resources, try to go up, because that would consider that's the highest class, right? And also because throughout the years, the way that in order to get on top, it's by testing. So you have to go to the best kindergarten in order to go to the best elementary school, and then you have a chance to go to the best middle school and best high school, at the end, best college. Once you go to the best college, your career is guaranteed, because that means you have all these doors open for you. All the governmental jobs, all the good jobs will be already in line. So that's why people are pushing. They put all the resources into their children, because that's their future. So that's why education is the top. And that's why you see all these tiger moms in Bellevue area driving their kids to take AP classes, to go to the Ivy League college. That's the goal. Because that's the only way to future. And not understanding actually in America, there's many different races. Even playing basketball could be successful, right? Right? Or doing anything. There's not just the education route. So that's one thing. So that's why there's a lot of the cultural, conflict coming from that as well. Okay, I will talk more about that. Yes.
So I think that's a really important and interesting point that you raised, because I saw this cultural conflict firsthand in Bellevue School District, and I think you may know about the diversity initiatives of the Bellevue School District and how the Chinese community has really come out against that, which really surprised me.
Yes.
And was very divisive within the school community, which is really sad.
That's true.
And so that's something I've experienced firsthand, and it was very surprising to me. And I have a multiracial kid, and so and this was the first time I'd really seen a very unified ethnic bloc come out and try and suppress efforts to encourage diversity, which was just shocking. I mean, it was really shocking to me. And so what can we do to try and, we went to these forums that they had in the school district and explained our perspective and explained why diversity is important, particularly in this culture in the US, where it's a mix, such a mix of diverse races and people from different national origins. And what I found was that the people that I was talking to were very recent immigrants from China.
Yes.
They hadn't been here for a long time. They'd been here for maybe 3, 4, 5 years. And I've been here for 20 years, so it's a lot longer. but they were very recent immigrants, and some of them didn't even have children in the school district. Their children were 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
Which, so what can we do to overcome those that cultural dissonance?
Barriers.
Yeah, so I think for that's a very big issue here. I have been working with Bellevue School District, and I will continue working with them on trying to see how can we bridge that, you know. And so I think it would take a lot of understanding, because a lot of the recent immigrants do not really understand how United States has come about, what diversity is about, how to value that. So I think it's probably more communication, education, more dialogue, and understanding their needs, and then trying to bring our, everybody's needs onto the table. So yeah, I think that would probably require much longer conversation to address that, but I would love to talk with you more about that. So education, I was talking about, that's why, so you see a lot of the pressure on the children, right? Trying to have them to succeed, because when you ask immigrants why do they come to United States, what do you think most common answer is?
Kids education.
For their kids' sake.
Yeah.
They will always say for my kids' sake, for them to have a better opportunity, better future, right? So that's why, and also in their mind, if education is the only way to get there, so that's why they will invest 200% of their resources and energy onto that. And then you will see how much that create the pressure on the kids. So there's a lot of, for kids feeling like the pressure and trying to be, try to meet their parents, expectation. There's a lot of the become mental health issue, depression, and not feel like, I'm failing my parents, or I feel like lost, so there's a lot of those issues. But I also want to kind of go back to the reason why people want to come to Bellevue. Besides education, okay, there's also, as you know that Seattle, when I talk about Seattle, I'm talking about in the King County area, okay? So because of the economy is booming, right? So there's a lot of opportunities for immigrants, because when immigrants come here, oftentimes because of the language or credential issue, they could no longer be a doctor here or be a nurse, right? So, so a lot of times they need to become a small business or something, other alternatives. So when economy is good, that means there's a lot of opportunity. They could get into different business that way. And also another reason is that, with all the Microsoft, all these high-tech company, right? So they're also attracting a lot of the, Chinese coming in here. And then you could see the changes of Victoria. Used to be only Target is my favorite, the only store I would go. But now I could go to Jinjing Supermarket, I could go to Tofu 101, I could Regent's Bakery. I could spend hours just in Victoria, shopping around everywhere, right? So you can see how it become very diversified, a lot of the, resources. And I remember when I first came in the 70s, Victoria, they still have, blueberry farm, right? I mean, for people who live here for a long time, right? And there's still blueberry farms, right? You won't see all those developments here. And also, and then I was talking that with the Chinese around here, as like before, if I go to Target, if I want to say something I don't want people to understand, I could use Chinese. But not anymore. Because the chances there's some Chinese there right next to me will understand what I was saying already, right? So I lost that. And also the reasons with, Bellevue becomes so popular is also because it's considering, Bellevue is such an easy access to Asia. There's so many direct flights, and only take about 12 hours, right? You could just, Tokyo is not too bad, right? You can just go already. So it's an easy access as well, right? Also just the, the whole system, and also another reason is that in 2000, there was a lot of investors went to Vancouver, BC. But 2016, they imposed a 15% foreign buyer tax So if you buy a home there, you have to pay extra 15% tax. So that kind of drive a lot of people coming down south and start buying home here. And also considering no matter how expensive we think Bellevue has, the housing become, but still compared to Los Angeles, San Francisco, we're still relatively affordable, right? So this become kind of the attraction. And there's a reason, and another reason I think, that's only my personal thought, okay? There's no research to back me up. There's a movie in 2013 or 14, it's called Beijing Meets Seattle. It became a very popular Chinese movie. So in China, yes, in China. So everybody know about Seattle. And even though the scenery was mostly shot in Vancouver, BC, but people was like, oh, so beautiful. Seattle is so beautiful. That's why they love Seattle. So Seattle become very famous in China. Okay, that's my theory, okay? Just like Sleepless in Seattle, right? All of a sudden everybody aware of Seattle, okay? That's just my theory. Now, so we're talking about all these group of people, right? They're all different immigrant population. And then they all come from different background, different socioeconomic, status. But they still, facing, some similar challenges, just in different levels, right? For example, if you think about, let's pretend you are an immigrant, what do you think number one challenge for you would be? Language. No matter how fluent your English would be, okay, but still, there's some of the things you just did not know, right? Like a parent came to ask me, whenever I ask my child, my teenager, where did he go? What is he doing with his friend? He said, hang out. We're just hanging out. What does that really mean? Hanging out. I never learned that word, okay, in my English textbook. And I tried to find dictionary. It didn't give me a definition, right? So things like that. And then there's another person came to me saying, hey, whenever I go to someone, they ask me, what's up? Why are they asking me what's up? I don't get it. So what's up? What's up? Right? So it's a lot of those, the slangs or the usage that was never taught in the English textbook. That troubled them, right? Needless to say, people who have less English capacity, right? Or does not even speak a single word of English, right? That becomes such an issue when you have a kid in school, even there's interpreter, I just feel uncomfortable when I drop off my kids. Even though there's, principal's coffee, I don't want to go because I don't understand a single thing they were talking about, right? Why? Or even I understand some of it, and when everybody laughed, and I was the only one who didn't get the joke, I don't want to be there, right? So that kind of become a big barrier for a lot of the reason for family did not be able to participate in their kids' education, or participate in the even community levels, right? So I think that's where the language has the biggest issue here. And then another issue is cultural shock. There's cultural differences, right? Like, for example, you were talking about, how do I say hi to these people, right? In China, usually when you go out in the street, you would try to maintain an unsmiling demeanor. You don't smile to people. You don't go to a stranger, say hi. Because when usually you're pretty much guarded when a stranger approach you. You become suspicious. What does that stranger want? So that's the difference is there, right? So that's usually when people come to Seattle, the first impression they will say, wow, people are really friendly here. Even strangers smile at me, say good morning, say hi to me, right? What do they want? Or like, you could go to any dogs and pet dogs, right? Even kids in the stroller, baby in the stroller, you could go say, oh, and play with the baby, and the parents usually are fine. They will have a conversation with you. But these are not quite, the way it is in China. And then in China, okay, because such a crowded, there's so many people there, right? So you don't ever line up. If you're lining up, you'll never get anywhere. You will always standing at your same place, okay? You will never be able to get on the bus or the subway. It's always because so crowded. So, cutting in line, it's a common practice. Yes. So I think that's another the practice, and also being on time. I was joking earlier, we're on Chinese wedding time, right? Because, being on time, it's not quite, the value, a lot of the, a lot of people would kind of, it's as a value as American. So that's why you see people kind of being late, and also appointment. We don't have appointment system. If you're sick, you just go to the doctor. You don't make appointment. So appointment is also something new to them, right? So these are a lot of the just in the daily life, how it's so different from they've been used to. And also, there's a lot of the cultural value. It's very different. Like in America, you value independent. But in the Asian culture, we value interdependence, right? So oftentimes you will see parents, even their kids are 3 or 4 years old, they will still chase after them trying to feed them instead of letting them to do it themselves. So a lot of the Asian kids, when they go to kindergarten, teacher will say, uh-oh, these kids do not have self-help skill because they don't know how to put on their jacket, they don't know how to button it. But they could do multiplication already. Right? Yeah. They could spell, they could read books already, but they don't know how to do these self-care skills because the emphasis is very different, right? And also individual needs versus family cohesion, right? Oftentimes you would suppress, in the Asian culture, you suppress your individual needs to meet the family needs. That's how, we value, right? So, and also, you talk about expression. We usually do not do a lot of the self-feeling disclosure. We only keep those things to yourself. But in the American culture, it's more self, expression, talking out loud your feeling, especially in school now, we're talking social emotional development, which is never valued, in the Asian educational system. So these are all very different, right? And even like the coffee time with principal, they would think, oh my gosh, if in China, if I would go to the principal office, that's when my kids are in big trouble. Then I would go to the principal's office, right? I would not have a dialogue with the principal that way, right? And also in here, you need to do community services in order to graduate. What has that to do with academic, right? Why do you need to have a high school, community services in order to? So there's a lot of these cultural differences, and because of these cultural differences, you could see as a result that create a lot of the conflict among families, the immigrant families as well. Because when the kids, they come to here, they adapt much faster than their parents, right? So you could see the kids are going that way, the parents are staying here. And the kids go further that way, the parents trying to grab them back, and the tension become really strong, especially at teenager age, when independence, individualism sounds so wonderful, but their parents are still trying to hold them back, right? So I think that's where a lot of the differences become, the conflicts among family members. And so, and also another common issue around immigrants is that they lost that family support network. They don't have that, they become really lonely because they become the only individual. They might have their nuclear family here, but they don't have that village surrounding them. So I think in order for for us as a neighbor, how do we welcome these newcomers, right? And how do we support them? I think there's many different ways. Continue saying hi to your all these people. I'm sure they will melt one day, and they will smile back to you and realize you don't want to get anything from them. You're just friendly, okay? I think just continue showing your welcome and your warmth to your neighbor, right? And also seeing that maybe they need a support, and you guys can be their another new support for them. You may not share the same language. You may not share the same culture. You may have very different traditions, but this is a great way to include everybody, right? And learn from each other, become a new family to them. For example, for youth, the youth are usually, I think, I feel most concerned about for immigrants, especially those come later age, right? They didn't come when they were elementary or younger, when they come in middle school and all that, because a lot of their cultural identity is formed already. And then when they come in, they don't feel like fit in the class, in the school, right? They don't understand all these culture, and they cannot fit into any of the clique in there. So they become very isolated. A group of youth I work with, when I ask them, what kind of activities you would like to do, they say, we want to be able to play basketball. I said, don't you have basketball at school? Oh, I can. I said, why not? Look at me. I'm only 5'4". I don't run as fast. And those kids been playing basketball when they were 3 years old. And I just started to pick up basketball. And I physically I'm not capable, just on their level. And I don't even speak, I cannot even communicate well with them. So they want the time just for themselves to be able to play basketball. And I thought that's how sad, that's all they want to do. And there's so many resources available, but they just cannot find one for them to fit them, right? So, again, youth be able to have a space for them, that be able to, have a friendly friend or, someone who could just hang out. And just be kind of a place that they don't have to worry about, do they speak perfect English or do they act correctly? Are they cool enough, right? So there's just that space for them. That I think those would definitely, a lot of, and then help them to talk about the differences, right? And also for families, for parents, if they can have, be able to pair up with another family who understand the educational system, to understand why community service is important, why after-school activity is important, right? College application is not just looking at the grades, it's looking at all these things. And even just give them that support. And sometimes tell those tiger mom, hey, chill out, okay? Life will be okay. Especially in America, there's so many different routes. Even your kids don't go to college now. If they want to come back to school, they could always go back to school. But in China, you cannot. Once you miss that, entrance to the college, then that's it, right? Yeah. So I think it's more about giving them that information. Even for the, you were talking about that, right? Helping them to understand why diversity is important.
And so the forums that I was in the school district did an interesting thing because they split everyone up. There must have been 400 people.
Mm-hmm.
And they split everyone up into groups of about 20. And it was roughly half and half, which is actually a fairly large Chinese group, because I think they really showed up. But I thought it was a really constructive conversation, and that people were trying to explain the other perspective.
That's true. And I think this is should not be just one time conversation, should be ongoing.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah,
and
right.
I think there's more coming up this week, because I think there's a vote on the school board has to take a vote, and I think both sides are planning to turn out en masse this week. So.
Yeah. As someone that doesn't live in Bellevue, can you give me just a synopsis what the issue is?
The school board, the Bellevue School District wanted to strengthen its diversity and talking about equity rather than equality.
Mm-hmm.
So they wanted to remove barriers to groups that have not been as included and talk about kind of a progressive diversity policy. And what the Chinese group were saying, they had an issue with I-200, which was just wrong. They were just wrong on the law. And they said that if we're looking at, their perspective was that we are being disadvantaged, that our kids have to score better to get into Harvard than any other group. And so they did not appreciate, for example, the school district providing resources to African Americans or to Latinos or other groups that have been historically disadvantaged, because they perceived that as somehow bringing their children down rather than trying to raise up everyone. And so it's a very difficult issue, and I first heard about it when my friend was at a meeting that I thought was going to be relatively routine, and she's African American, and she texted and said, "You won't believe what's happening, and you've got to come to the next meeting." And so I think that there were a lot of people, African American parents, who were feeling very, they were really feeling that they were being put down, left out, pushed out, not heard yet again.
Yeah.
And I think that part of the issue might be that the immigrants from China come here and they don't, and I've only been here, I've been here 20 years, but I'm not American. But I've learned about the culture here is very different with regarding different races. Particularly, the history of African Americans here has a deep resonance even today. And I think that maybe the recent immigrants from China haven't been here long enough, or don't realize, or haven't been educated, and they don't know the history. And so the thing that I see that's so tragic is I think we should all be allies. I think we can all be allies in this, and that's why I was really shocked, because I thought that all groups can work together to promote something better. And the school board was really good, because I talked to the superintendent personally, just in a 10-minute passing conversation, but he was there, which I thought was great, and I said, please don't stop what you're doing, because there's a huge pressure on the school district from this Chinese community. And I said, please don't stop what you're doing, because I think that what you're doing is moving in the right direction. And he sounded like he was on track. I think they are, but I think it's tough, because I don't like to see a group of immigrants who are banding together and are kind of creating their own otherness in doing this. I would like to see them integrate and become part, but because they're so concerned about this and they're joining together, they're almost creating themselves as an other, because they're creating an opposite opinion that's pushing against everyone else. And I think we need to break that down somehow. And I have, I have friends who are Chinese American who've been here longer, and they were actually very good allies in this, because they were really able to talk from a perspective of someone who's been here for a longer period, and were able to try and explain. And I think they did a lot of that in that group setting. But it's hard when a lot of the people in my room, when I did that discussion, weren't even parents in the school district. They had toddlers.
Yeah.
So they weren't people that you're going to run up against tomorrow or the next day, because they're not in the school district yet.
That's right.
And that's really hard too.
Yeah, and also I think oftentimes with a lot of the immigrants, their image about other ethnic group, it's all from Hollywood movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they don't really have a deep understanding about how African American, what their experiences were here in America, or even other immigrants groups, right? Or they come up with, they are, these are always the bad guy in the movie. They're the drug dealer. They are, they are living in the slum area. So I think those are the ones that who, just drag down the welfare system. They keep on having kids and receiving money. So these are a lot of the misinformation that, because they never have the experience, they have the chances even to understand the whole. So I think again, education, information, it's the key, right? again, just like that, the key for everything. Like for us to understanding our new neighbor, even for me to start understanding, the new Chinese coming from China, because I'm from Taiwan, right? I even need to learn how to work with them. I remember I did a parenting classes talking about, don't use corporate punishment. And this parent from China stood up and challenged me. Can you tell me Americans do not beat up their kids? I said, this is not the point, okay? And then, so it was, still, I think I would still need to, then I realized maybe my presentation, I need to change my way of doing the presentation. I need to change it. So I'm learning as well. But I think, gaining more understanding with each other probably is always the, the best.
Yeah, and I think that as an immigrant, anyone who's immigrated has a common experience in that they leave part of themselves and they gain something else. Anyone has that. And I think that the mistake, if I want to call it that, and I'm sure they don't see it this way, but I think the mistake that the recent Chinese immigrants are making is they're coming in here and they are telling others how it should be in this country. And I think when you come somewhere, you have to spend a time where you reflect and you observe and you see what's going on around you before you start to impose your way on a place, because you're really coming in as a newcomer and you have to adapt to that. So I think it's really interesting, and I wonder if it comes from some of the comments you made. First of all, that the people who are coming here are richer, and maybe they're more entitled in their own country, or they're not coming here with nothing, and they have to climb from the bottom. So
yeah, I think it's we could write a thesis on this whole
Yes.
topic, right? Because it all depends on also their political situation as well, right? How a lot of these people coming up, they are probably in a higher power. Right, they were related in the government job. They're coming, in the very upper class. So I think there's a lot of factor in how Chinese run, the system itself too. Yes, you have a comment.
Greenwich Crest, which is the neighborhood where our church is located, has a great number of Asian people. And we keep talking about reaching out to our neighbors, and we're not very successful at that. Do you have some thoughts about what we should or should not be doing?
So I think usually if you want, have go into a group of new people, right? You need to find a champion from that group. So if you could connect one first, if you could identify who is the one you could work with first. Work with them, and through that person, let him or her to connect with their circle, bring them together. And having, that ally to let you know what is the best way to approach them. Is that a Sunday afternoon block party, which is probably nobody will show up if you don't have that ally to go the invitation to invite other people, right? Or even just, get together at someone's house. So I think try to, if you could find one person.
I know that's worked. I taught at a school that had a large Hispanic population in that, and we found a mother that was not a leader that you would think was a leader, but she was a leader. She was the one that knew all the other mothers and knew all the, and she was able to do exactly that. Bring the rest along.
Yeah, so if you could find that one, and then start to building relationship. Again, relationship is always the key, right? Once we have that relationship, then everything else will be easy, especially with Chinese.
And we have a Taiwanese fellowship that uses our facility on Sunday mornings, and I think our attempt to integrate us has not been particularly successful. We have a few things that we've been able to do, but that's another thing that I think we need help on.
So maybe if you could find, again, try to find someone from the leader from that group, and also try to identify one common goal you could accomplish. either like, Bible study or even learning English through Bible, or, exchange something. If you could find just one common things, then that would kind of start draw people together. Because if you don't have that common goal, it would be hard, right? Why do I want to spend my time going there? I don't speak English well, right? And or I don't feel comfortable. Yeah. So if you could go from there, that might be something.
Well, time is getting, we're used to having more time, we're used to having a whole hour, but thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. I hope this is helpful.
Yeah, thank you. And if you have questions, please feel free to come up and ask her. Thank you.
Sure.